Hello, my name's Harry Tanguy. Welcome back to the channel and thank you very much, and please subscribe to it. And I'm here just to give the other side, the policing side. I've just done 30 years, frontline policing, armed response, traffic, stop searches, public order, domestics, the whole lot. And so when I see YouTube footage or social media comments, I tend to have another viewpoint because it's very biased at the moment. And I think the latest really is Inspector George Andrew, who is the interim leader of the Black Police Association, who says that he believes that the police service as a whole is systemically, institutionally racist still. But he actually, I'm looking for the evidence in there and I can't find any, because there's certain things he was talking about, Dawn Butler's stop, for example, and obviously we'll be referring to Bianca's stop as well. There's an assumption. So just say they were white. There are hundreds of stops like that every day around the country, exactly like that. An error of a registration number, or the fact, what's that bunch doing? And guess what? They can be white as well. What's that bunch doing here? I haven't seen them before. This is an area of robberies, and that is a car cruising around the area or whatever. It's just looking out of place, okay? You can legally stop that vehicle just to ascertain who the driver of the vehicle is and whether they have insurance, whether they have driving license, that side of things. Now, if they're white, they may be fine. They're not gonna get picked up on that. If you're black, and just say you were up to no good, what's the best thing you can do? You kick off, don't you? It's confrontation. You've just stopped me because I'm black. What do you think you're doing here? You're a typical racist, you're racist scum. And we've all seen the videos of police officers who have got people up in the front. It's not acceptable. And I don't see, why should police officers should be expecting that? I always had a rule, and that was, I didn't join this job to be insulted and abused. I am not going to be your post for the abuse that you just want to shed, even if it isn't meant to be at me personally, but if it's at a figure of authority for all your woes. And it's interesting because people like Inspector Andrew George, they always say that the people who are complaining and saying that it's institutionally racist is very careful to point out that the individual officers were not racist. Oh no, it's the policies and the procedures. That's because they haven't got any evidence on video. And we have to take it for granted that when individuals were stopped, they didn't come out the cars all abusive like the police officers said in their statement. Because there was another inspector in the Met who's, I believe, suing the police for a stop check, and he said he was stop checked for again for racism, and he was suing the police, is what they were saying. And again, the officer's records showed that he'd been quite obstructive and abusive, and so on and so forth. And of course, then people would be treated exactly like everyone else just because you're a police officer. So it's really, I'm struggling to find any evidence. You're proving a negative. How many times can you say, no, we're not? Where is the evidence to say you are? That they were stopped? We stop a lot of white people. So where's the difference? They stopped them because the number plate was different. And Inspector George Andrew was, well, there's no reason to stop a car just because it was from Yorkshire. Well, excuse me, you're a pretty naff police officer if you give a reason to not stop any vehicle. You ain't going to catch anyone. And as long as you stop that car and you are polite to the occupants, which those officers were, to Dawn Butler, then there should be no issues. And she said there was no issues between her and those officers. She certainly put them in the limelight on social media, didn't she? She certainly put the pressure on them for their bosses. It's disgusting behaviour, absolutely disgusting behaviour. You know, they're going on about Black Lives Matter and things. You look at the details of Black Lives Matter and they're still saying, that people have had enough. There's a huge divide against police. and the black community. As far as I can see, there's been a massive divide now that's been gone back a decade generally with what I see on social media, because people feel that there's an injustice, that there's a claim that there is something that there isn't. Black Lives Matter, look at the details. They don't just want to defund the police, they want to get rid of them. And have a look in America to see how that's getting on. Oh, it's just the basic facts. They said, well, no, we're going to supply more social services, more community, so you don't need so many police. Okay, so who's going to deal with the suicidal person on the bridge, motorway bridge? Who's going to see with the pub fight because they've got drunk? You're going to send social workers there and things. Who's going to, there's mentally ill people. At the end of the day, you deal with them sensitively, but you can't reason with a lot of people because a lot of the time they've got voices in their heads telling them to do things. And the police are the first ones to come along, and they deal with these things in a very sensitive manner. You'll never see that on television. You'll never see that on social media because it's private. It's private. So it can give the impression that all police do is look round, stop checking people and causing them harm. Inspector George Andrew also said that he didn't like the way that there's a standard use of handcuffs when searching people. Well, as far as I'm aware, that tends to be when there is a confrontation or when people have made off. You don't have to prove that they made off. You just need to have suspicion, but you do it politely, which is exactly what happened. But when you're sat in the car, locked up, basically laughing them in their faces through the windscreen and videoing them, that to me, you're obstructing law because the law needs to be done. Because people are dying in London. They're getting stabbed. Young black men in particular are being stabbed. And it's really important to try to stop that. And I think it's just a travesty that the people who are trying to do that, and I know a lot of them very personally. I know them because I worked in London. I've gained friends in London, and cops are cops are cops. And I'll tell you now, if you were racist, the police service is the wrong place to be because you will be hounded out. But then we've heard, it's not the cops that are racist, is it? It's the system. So what we should do, according to them, is when we stop check people, don't handcuff them. Oh, let me have a training scenario with them. I'll be off over the road getting knocked over by a juggernaut and they'll say, why didn't you contain them? It's down to you, that is. Why didn't you contain them? You just stopped their car. There's a chance, if they've done something that you suspect they may have done, they're going to leg it. And they're not going to be worried about where they leg it. Okay, how long does it take to go bang, straight between the eyes? 30 years policing, you don't think someone's going to do that? While you're searching their pockets for drugs, knives, that knife that is in there. We've seen that video recently on social media where the lad's being searched and he absolutely, and then makes a break for it. There was one in Devon and Cornwall in custody when he was being searched and he pulled a knife out of his trousers and absolutely threw it towards the officer to literally bed it. And it was just the quick movement of that officer that prevented him from dying. I mean, it's plainly clear on the video. I suppose what really frustrates me, by all means comment if you've got knowledge and experience, and Inspector George Andrews certainly has got that. But the more we listen to people who haven't a bloody clue, is frustrating. And they don't realise the safety involved and that you deal with a lot of nasty people. And a lot of people just abuse police officers, and they're human beings. So I say treat as you get treated. And if you need to bring them down a peg or two because they're abusing you, then so be it. But unfortunately that's not allowed now. You've got police officers just standing there are taking massive amount of verbal abuse. And what does that do to the level of authority in order to be able to carry out your work? Oh no, MPs just do it now. They just chuck it all on social media saying how institutionally racist everyone is. Where's the evidence apart from stopping a car? Because as far as I'm aware, a whole host of cars get stopped with white people in there. Now, until you can say that only people in cars who are black are being stopped, I can't see. Or until you can say that, well, some said I've stopped your car because of something so extreme that is not being used as a reason for white people, then that would be another reason I'd suggest. But remember, in London, in Hackney, for example, and Manchester is tough as well, these cities, you're 8 times more likely to be a perpetrator and black in Hackney, for example, in London rather, London per se, and you're 4 times more likely to be the victim. And I think we owe it to everyone, the white people and the black victims. We owe it to everyone. And while we're fanning around with these people accusing the Met, so the officers are afraid to stick one foot in front of the other, I'll tell you what will happen. They do exactly what I suggest they do, and that is stay in the station and do the bare minimum. Because any proactive policing you do, proactive, looking for it. You see these big machetes being pulled out of people, these heroin, cocaine dealers, all that. They'll all go. It'll all go. Why? Because they're going to have to stop 8 in order to get 2 positives. And they call that a bad strike rate. 80% of checks prove negative. If you don't do the 80%, you don't get the 20%. And I sure as hell want them to get the 20%. Even if it's down to driving my car and I have to pay expensive insurance. Not so much now because I'm old. But I don't want them driving around with no insurance, because they know the chances are, if they keep their head down, they ain't going to get stopped. Because the registration might say the car's insured, but I don't know the driver is that person, or whether he's borrowed it. Oh, it's frustrating. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is with people at the moment, what's going on. But I hope it goes over soon. I've got a fair idea. It does stem from America. It is a bit political, because the Democrats, it seems that every 4 years when they want to vote, they put a whole load of fake news in. There's a lot of people who are anti-police, who are pro-Black Lives Matter, who actually don't know any of the facts. And when you say, well, actually, I think it's only 15 people lost their lives in police custody in the last 10 years, and 13 of those were white in the UK. And you say we've got a pandemic problem? And when I say lost their lives, I mean you're also putting terrorists in there, and you're also putting people who were arrested and had a heart attack in the cells after no struggle whatsoever, and they go to hospital and they die in hospital 2 days later. That's a death in police custody. Yeah? So I think it was one black person in the last 10 years. And all these Mark Duggan situations. Look at the man's history. And I have a rule. And a motto, if you like. If you insist on playing with fire, you may get burnt. And sometimes it's tragic. And instant decisions have to be made, especially at the end of the gun. I carried a gun for over 20 years. Instant decisions. And like I say, that 1/10 of a second decision to pull that trigger will then be reviewed for the next 7 years plus by the best barristers. And it will go on and on. And that was constant. That was a constant pressure. But basically, I wanted to just help the good people, because that's all that matter, really, to me. And that's what it comes down to. And I don't think we should be so shocked and shed too many tears if somebody has decided and chosen to have a life on the edge of the most horrendous violence involving firearms and Class A drugs and making other people's lives a misery, and they lose their life in a struggle. By all means, if you can prove intent, go for it. Don't play with fire and you won't get burnt. Simple as that. And then, no, we won't need cops then, will we? But we need plenty of them for now. And this defunding stuff, get over yourselves. It's utterly ridiculous. And I think people have realised that Black Lives Matter now when you just have a look. Look at the actual details of what they actually stand for. And you realise they've got very little to do with getting rid of racism, which we all support. And anyone in their right mind would want to support that. But by all accounts in Britain, it's only institutionally racist, it's not the individuals themselves. So that should be an easy problem to sort. You just don't stop cars anymore. And when people are rude to you, just turn around and walk away and go back to the station, have a cup of tea. And if they run away from you, let them run away. And if they struggle, apologise and go back to the station. What are they getting at? What? Hell. There'll be some more of these anyway. Probably helps to think aloud and put a little bit of my experience and knowledge in, because I know a little bit more than some people. And it might make you decide and help you decide between the press, mainstream media, the people who've probably got an agenda that make the complaints in the first place, and generally people who hate the police because they keep getting caught. My name's Harry Tanguy. Subscribe. I'd love to have you on board, and if we can just build this YouTube channel up, that would be great. Thank you guys. Stay safe out there.